I just wanted to share some things that have been on my mind for a long time. I've been wanting to share all of this information regarding Donald Trump and its high strangeness. So I label this in one of my folders on one of my other channels called Trump Strangeness. And there's a lot of very odd events that have happened with Mr. Donald J. Trump and his rise to fame and fortune and power and things. But his involvement with Nikola Tesla is a huge thing, of course, that, you know, through his uncle. And this potential event of possible time travel, well, this whole narrative gets very odd. And now I'm sharing this channel from KJ's What Happened because he does have some of the footage that I wanted to use for my video, just so you guys can see. And I can link KJ's video in this description to give him credit for all of this that he's done. So with no further ado, here we go.
Consider this, okay? Check this out.
Going back now to his inauguration. A few days ago, I caused a bit of an uproar when I said on Fox News that there was an evil in the Democratic Party. After what I saw on Tuesday night, I absolutely stand by these words. There's something demonic happening within the ranks of the Democrats. Perhaps they should consider swapping their white dresses and cloaks for sackcloth and ashes. The new America, the same is happening in Europe, where right-wing parties have gained significantly. Not surprisingly, both the CFR evaluations of the races, etc., and the European Union's dictatorial rule as being expired by far right. They're moving towards the right. And the power that the parliament has really is to change laws. They want to change laws. What laws they want to change? The European Commission is the initiator of laws, and then parliament can debate and change them. So these European parliamentary elections were very closely watched. The highest turnout ever. Okay, let me first go to this one. To give you a little bit of background, if you think Donald Trump is a flash in the pan, and it was never planned like this, and he's really turning the apple cart upside down, then perhaps you should think again. Because there has never been a president that hasn't been the president before he was the president. Let me put it that way.
Right now, Christians are professing that prophecy is in the making, as an Israeli organization has started to mint coinage, which displays a 70-year fulfillment of Israel. It represents the gathering of Israel together again, giving all glory to Trump's image, which is in front of King Cyrus on the front of the coin, and a rebuilt third temple on the back. The coin itself, paired with the current geopolitical state of affairs, is shocking, as it indeed represents that we are on the verge of a cataclysmic period in time, known as the end times. However, one specific aspect of this coin caught my attention. That is, the image of Donald Trump on the front, paired with the symbol of peace, a dove, on the back. It reminded me that before Donald Trump was elected president, he was referred to as Donald the Dove. Why is that? Well, back in 1983, a well-known photographer named William Coupon had photographed him with a dove when he was at the pinnacle of his career. But what did Donald Trump have to do with a dove that would warrant this picture? While it's difficult to find, William Coupon is on record at least twice, stating that the photo shoot was for a Manhattan Inc. magazine edition. He states on Time.com, quote, "I shot Donald Trump twice. This is my favorite." Trump was offering his services as a peace negotiator between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Later on Tao Style, he writes, he, Donald Trump, was 32 years old when I took that photograph in 1983. He was attempting to, independently, negotiate an agreement between the Israelis and Palestinians at that time. So when the news first broke in the Trump presidency that he would try to attempt Middle East peace, it took many by surprise. Many thought that this was Trump being flamboyant, that he would, even recklessly, display how he is the chief negotiator by trying to tackle Middle East peace. However, many do not realize that this has been on Trump's mind for a very, very long time, over 35 years to be exact. While many think that Trump happened to grab the presidency by happenstance, just due to a cascade of events in the geopolitical sphere, many peculiar things tell us otherwise. For one, there has been some predictive programming of a Trump presidency via cartoons, as with the Simpsons episode in 2000 called Bart to the Future, or this eerily accurate heavy metal cartoon called The Wall by Peter Cooper from July 1990, which even foretells of a Trump wall. But even more disturbing is Trump's direct integration with the White House back in the early 1980s, which relates back to the photo of the dove I showed before. The photo was used in this Manhattan Inc. magazine edition entitled Donald Trump's Ultimate Deal. In this magazine, Donald tells us how he can solve nuclear arms proliferation across the world. What's shocking about this article, as I mentioned prior, is that Trump states that he has been in close talks with the White House ever since the early 80s, as well as his plan with which he would disarm the world. In referencing to his intertwining with the White House, he states, "I'm dealing at a very high level on this," he said, with people in Washington, in the White House. There was too much at stake for him to risk the wrong kind of exposure on the subject being nuclear proliferation. In summary, he states, referring to the rest of the world outside US and Russia, most of those pre-nuclear countries are in one form or another dominated by the US and Soviet Union. Between those two nations, you have the power to dominate any of those other countries. So we should use our power of economic retaliation, and they use their powers of retaliation. And between the two of us, we will prevent the problem from happening. So Trump's solution is a partnership with Russia to subdue other countries from obtaining nuclear arms. Other than teaming up with Russia, what were his specific plans? Well, he states, again, referring to the other countries, maybe we should offer them something. I'm saying you start off nicely as possible. You apply as much pressure as necessary until you achieve the goal. You start off telling them, let's get rid of it. If that doesn't work, you start cutting off aid, and then more. You do whatever is necessary so these people will have riots in the street, so they can't get water, so they can't get Band-Aids, so they can't get food, because that's the only thing that's going to do it. The people, the riots. Trump is so bold in this interview that he even declares sanctions against allies like France, since they have the nuclear bomb. He states they've got the bomb, but they don't have it now with the delivery capability they will have in 5 years. If they don't give it up, and I don't mean reduce it, and I don't mean stop, because stopping doesn't mean anything. I mean, get it out. If they didn't, I would bring sanctions against that country that would be so strong, so unbelievable, end quote. So these are the thoughts of Donald Trump 35 years ago, that he was already entwined in the White House, that he was already attempting Middle East peace, and that, at least in reference to nuclear disarmament, he is prepared to work with Russia to subdue the rest of the world into riots by massive sanctions and other means. Well, isn't it interesting then that 35 years ago from these statements, Donald Trump is pursuing Middle East peace, that he is being investigated for a variety of collusions with Russians, and also publicly states that the two should moderate the Israeli-Palestinian peace, that just as he was prepared to bring massive sanctions on France 35 years ago, that he states today he will sanction European allies if they continue to deal with Iran in the nuclear Iran deal. So it seems to me that one, Trump and perhaps the elites have been grooming Trump for this event for nearly 4 decades. And two, his thoughts of the past seem to be reflective of what he is actively doing right now. Now, I find it humorous that most will say I'm a Hillary-loving liberal because of my stance on Donald Trump. That could be farther from the truth. The reality is I'm a conservative Christian who has discernment on people's character as well as biblical prophecy. I understand that this Trump presidency is hardly by mistake or chance odds, and that all the focus on Trump, Russia, and the United States seems to have originated from a plan Trump had nearly 4 decades ago. While it seems Russia and the United States are headed steadily into war, could this be Hegelian dialectic? Could the two, in reality, just be working for the same common beast system goals, but from opposite ends of the spectrum? I'll let you decide. But you have to admit, the parallelisms between then and now are pretty stunning. This is Mike with On Point Preparedness. Please do subscribe and like. God bless.
Okay, now let's talk about New York City and Trump Tower. One thing to note about New York is that you do not get prime real estate anywhere in the state or near the city unless you're involved with the mafia, okay? This is one thing to note, especially, something of this caliber. Let's just go over here and look and see who owns New York. All right, this is written in October 31st, 2017, 5 families of New York, how the mafia divides the city. Now, the mafia, as we know, includes the CIA and all the different cartels around the world. They own many different states and cities and many different countries. And the mafia has basically been taking over the world. This is what's happening. We have different mafioso families that have been battling for supremacy for a long time. So let's just read this brief article. Frank Gioia Jr., I don't even know if that's the right pronunciation, forgive me, joined the powerful Lucchese crime family in 1991. During a ceremony in a Queens, New York basement, Gioia took the blood oath of omertà, or silence about criminal activity. The Lucchese family is one of the notorious 5 families of the Italian-American mafia, each with its own territory, set up to control criminal activities in New York City. Gioia became a made man during one of the most violent periods in the Lucchese family's history. After his arrest in 1993, Gioia agreed to turn the state's evidence. His cooperation led to the arrest of dozens of mafia figures. The Lucchese crime family has become a part of popular culture, its activities and members serving as the basis for several books and movies. We've already all seen The Godfather and all of these types of things. These are based on real stories. So how is the New York mafia structured? The New York mob is controlled by 5 organized crime families with specific geographic boundaries created in 1931 to stop turf wars. I'm not sure that it's really to stop wars. I mean, look at how bad the world has gotten. The families are Bonanno, Colombo, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese. Historically, the 5 families are overseen by the commission, which includes bosses from the 5 families and the heads of the Buffalo and Chicago mobs. The commission hasn't had a formal meeting in decades, but is rumored to still exist. Of course, it still exists. It just transforms, Anyway, yeah. Meet the people that own New York. Look at their faces. This screams The Sopranos, I mean, this image right here. Anyway, this is just a little insight that most people don't generally think about when you have real estate in downtown New York, and how Trump obviously knows these people. But there's something going on. I'm telling you, something's amiss. And we're going to keep going because there's a lot more evidence to present in this whole Trump strangeness trial. Now moving on to a book that perhaps some of you have not come across. It's called The Barron Trump Collection, and it's by a man named Ingersoll Lockwood. Now, Ingersoll lived in the 1800s and wrote this book in the 1800s. Ingersoll Lockwood's book was written in 1893. And basically it starts with a book called Barron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey. So it's a story about a little boy called Barron Trump who lives in a castle called Castle Trump. And he embarks on an adventure to Russia, guided by the master of all masters, a man named Don, who is basically the narrator of the story. And his journey is to find a secret portal to travel through time. Ingersoll Lockwood's 1896 novel, The Last President, gives an even more unexplainable similarity to today's political situation, because in this book, after an enormously opposed outsider political candidate is elected, turmoil and panic erupts in the city of New York. Citing an address on Fifth Avenue where Trump Tower stands is a little bit too coincidental to be happenstance. But after the candidate's inauguration, he picks his cabinet, which will include a man named Pence. So you can see there's some very strange, anomalous things that are tied with this book. Now, one of the things to note about Donald Trump is his uncle, John Trump, was part of MIT. He was a very special guy because he was involved in a lot of the really high-end secretive projects. And he also was the one who went to claim Tesla's documents when Tesla died. So he was sent by the FBI to go and lay eyes on Nikola Tesla's documents in his hotel room to see if there were any threats to national security, because there were rumors that Tesla had been working on a death ray. Well, obviously, John Trump got the documents and said, basically there's nothing to see here. And so the story continues. So let's just read this little blurb. Only the Tesla coil is revered in Tesla's inventions, which makes it clear that a great injustice has been done to him, as he was the main progenitor of inventions for the 20th century. Tesla's approximately 700 inventions and some 200 patents included alternating current motors, rocket engine designs, particle beam weapons, and a wireless electrical system. Lesser known are his experiments with anti-gravity, invisibility, and even time travel. In 1885, Tesla discovered that time and space could be influenced by causing highly charged, rotating magnetic fields. With these experiments in high voltage electricity and magnetic fields, Tesla discovered that time and space could be breached or warped, creating a doorway that could lead to other time frames. When we're talking about these high electricity and rotating magnetic fields, CERN happens to come to mind, which they've already admitted that they will bring stuff through or send stuff through. Okay, so John Trump was the man asked by the FBI to review Tesla's personal papers upon his death in 1943. Why John Trump? Because as a professor at MIT, he was a widely acknowledged expert in classified government studies like the Roswell UFO crash and in high voltage radiation and Van de Graaff generators. Both of these are key components in the propulsion systems and flying saucer research. If Tesla's research was merely speculative thoughts, then why would Professor Trump abandon his work on high voltage energy and continue to study Tesla's work on the acceleration of heavy particles to high energies? According to Stephen Hawking, they were the closest things to time machines. Isn't it curious that Tesla and Lockwood lived in the same city of New York during the same time that Tesla worked on his time travel machine and Lockwood wrote his books? Could Lockwood have traveled to the future in one of Tesla's time travel machines and based his prophetic books on his visions of the future? These things are very curious indeed. So we continue with a little bit of backstory about Tesla in a recently released FBI document regarding Nikola Tesla. A newly declassified FBI document known as the Interplanetary Sessions newsletter, written on June 14th, 1957, seems to suggest that these notions may not be as unbelievable as they sound. In fact, this document seems to suggest that Tesla was originally from the planet Venus. It read in part, "The space people have visited the Tesla engineers many times and have told us that Tesla was a Venusian, brought to this planet as a baby in 1856 and left with Mr. and Mrs. Tesla in a remote mountain province in what is now Yugoslavia. Additionally, Margaret Storm, a woman who was tasked with writing a book on Tesla's remarkable life, was reportedly given information through a device that the scientists created in 1938 that was said to allow for interplanetary communication. Allegedly, Storm even had contact with these so-called space people. In an interview in May of 1959, Storm reported that Tesla was in fact a Venusian, saying, "Tesla was born on board a spacecraft and brought to this planet and placed in the care of Mr. and Mrs. Tesla." Storm claims that Tesla was frequently in contact with his fellow Venusians, even visiting him from time to time. In the interview, she states that Tesla had many visitors who arrived in spaceships and that most of them have come from Venus. According to the Interplanetary Sessions newsletter, Margaret Storm had been assigning to certain work with the space people as follows. She is writing a book, Return of the Dove, a story of the life of Nikola Tesla, scientist, and the part his inventions will play in the new age. Further, much of the information that Storm used to complete her book was apparently given to her through communication with the space people. The now declassified FBI document goes on to say, much of the data for this book has been supplied to Mrs. Storm through transcripts received on the Tesla set, a radio type machine invented by Tesla in 1943, and his engineers did not build the Tesla set until after his death. It was placed in operation in 1950, and since that time, the Tesla engineers have been in close touch with spaceships. It is hard to say what exactly the motives were for Margaret Storm's book and her claims that Tesla was a Venusian. In looking at the declassified FBI document, however, we may receive a small clue as to the greater minds at work in this process. Mrs. Storm will present the material to certain small groups in the New York area within the next few weeks, and probably space groups in other sections will also cooperate by offering it to their members. Our world situation is not hopeless by any means, although the space people bluntly inform us that as a race we are too lazy. Spiritually, we must become more potent if we are to hold this planet together against the efforts of the dark forces to blow it to bits. Could it be that Margaret Storm's book was meant to spark a new perception of our reality that would lead us to a higher spiritual place in the universe so that we could correct the trajectory that our planet was on at the time? If the claims of both the declassified FBI document and that of Margaret Storm, who made these claims years earlier, are to be believed, it implies that the United States has had close contact with the extraterrestrials from Venus. Still, there are questions that remain. If Tesla is in fact from Venus, why did he come to Earth? Why did aliens reveal Tesla's origins to the FBI? And why did beings from Venus contact Tesla so many times over the course of his life? The release of declassified government documents surrounding Nikola Tesla, UFOs, and extraterrestrial life, and our government's longtime knowledge of it, seem to be preparing us for full disclosure. Now, one thing I want to note, again, they mentioned the dove in this work that she made. And we know that Donald was called the dove, but also about Nikola Tesla being from Venus. There is also a story that many people don't know about Valiant Thor, who was also claimed to be a Venusian who visited the Pentagon a long time ago. You know, he actually stayed around for about 3 years and was trying to, I guess, make peace talks. There's some very strange phenomena going on right now. And the suggestion of time travel and Nikola Tesla being involved, of course, with the Philadelphia experiment and working with the government with all these top secret types of programs. There's a lot out here that the population is missing as far as what is being told as history. Will we know the truth? We are still looking, but in doing so, this is what we do. We compile the things that we have come across from other people's videos or whatever other means we have found information, and we amplify the message so that we can unify all of the information and build the bigger picture. This is what's needed in order to truly bring about the truth in the world. And we're here to elevate each other and escalate our minds. We are not here to be slaves. We are here to do good things, to rejoice and to live in joy, not oppression. But whatever's happening right now is nothing more than a miracle. From what we're seeing evolve from China, Russia, and all of the BRICS nations who joined together to try to steer this machine back from self-destruction. They are trying to reestablish the gold standard, and it is coming. Even this country in the United States of America, not the United States, because the United States is a corporation, but the United States of America, we are going to have a gold-backed currency very soon. And all of this is being steered by some people who have come to try to help us. They have seen the situation, and apparently there are those factions in our government who needed the help, because I believe they got themselves in trouble with a lot of different beings that we are not aware of. And all of that knowledge will be coming back to us. But we have to continue on this journey and just share what we know. And I encourage everyone to just add to the pot, share what you know. I know someone personally. Again, this is what happens to me, is these weird synchronicities that come through to my life when I ask for truth. I know someone personally who was an engineer very early on in their life, and they said they met Nikola Tesla. Now, this was after Nikola Tesla died, but it just tells you a little bit about what they truly achieved with time travel. And I believe that the dark factions and their CERN and all of their other hadron colliders around the world, I believe that they were trying to open up portals for other beings to come through. And whether they're coming from below us or somewhere else is left to be determined, because there's a whole nother story that lies beneath the surface of what we know as Earth. And I believe that it involves the Norse mythological map and what our world truly entails, because there are realms that we do not know about. And that is for another video. But on this one, I'm going to bring this one to a close. And thank you so much again for watching my videos. See you on the next one.